What's going on, guys? Waco from Revolution, and this is a conversation that I've been looking forward to for a long time. So I wanted to get together people I admire in this industry and have a conversation between the three of us, but maybe more the two of you guys as well. And I think these are two people that are incredibly accomplished for their young ages. It's Jean Arnault from Vuitton Watches and Alex Mille from Richard Mille. Gentlemen, how are you?
Very good. You?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for being here. So the first question I would like to pose to both of you is, you're both really nice guys, and nice guys from amazing backgrounds from huge businesses. So Alex, why are you so nice, dude?
Oh, wow, very good question. I guess it's just, I don't know, like my whole life I've been raised to be respectful of people and to be very humble. So I guess that's the product of my parents and my education and everything.
I've always loved that about Richard Mille, because it's a watch with, okay, if you don't mind my saying, the Morgan Stanley report came out, right? And everyone looked at the Morgan Stanley report, so who are the top watch brands? Right? And then they see Richard Mille with their, 1.3 billion, in revenue Swiss francs. And then you look at the column that says the number of watches they make, which is 5,300. And then everyone took out their calculators and it's like, oh my God, average price is 250,000 Swiss francs. So, but the interesting thing is that despite having the by far biggest average price in the industry, your dad, you, everyone in that organization is just such a down-to-earth person. Is that like a cultural, do you guys have meetings and be like, this is our culture?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we have rules and the rules is be nice. When you live like that, you surround yourself with people that are nice. And to the extent of my knowledge, I can tell you all the clients that I meet are very nice, all the journalists that I can meet are very nice, all the people I'm meeting are very nice. So I guess it's just the way you see life. You attract what you are, and my dad, and he's the same. He's exactly the same person. He just surround himself with people that he can spend time with, giving our entire self to that work. So might as well surround yourself with people that you want to be with. And yeah, that's how you go. And he goes for the watches, he goes for for the production, he goes for the marketing, he goes for our market. We just surround ourselves with people we want to spend time with because we are spending our life with them.
And there's also something quite funny that you can't say. You have obviously you both have a lot more experience than I do in the watch industry. But one thing
I feel old now.
One thing I've noticed in the watch industry, though, is that you do have a certain group of people which are inherently not nice and are really trying to either
we won't name
exactly, kick you in the teeth or try to do something or pull the dirty on you or something like that. And I've always found that very funny because at the end of the day, we're not making nuclear weapons. We're not focused on life or death situations. Worst case scenario, a watch stops working and you're a bit late to a meeting or something like that. And that doesn't happen anymore because you have your phone. So why, again, if I could answer in his place as well, why you're so nice is because we're part of the industry where we only sell our personas. We only sell amazing products, amazing craftsmanship, and it's only about emotion. So if you're not nice in the process and you're trying to, push a product on a client or push a watch that person doesn't want, then it's just not going to be a pleasurable experience anymore, right? So it's just about making sure you provide the best experience and do it in the nicest way possible, and also focus on making sure that the experience and the product you're delivering is of the best quality.
I've always found it kind of funny because our entire job is to make people happy, right? And the only reason we put objects into the world is that that object is meant to give people positive emotion. And yet sometimes, because of the world we live in, and also because of social media now, you can get criticism, right? So I've recently experienced that with a watch that I did with William Messina. And it was interesting. It was like the first time I ever really received criticism. And of course, it has an effect on you as well. But then the strange thing was that criticism created a kind of publicity that made that watch super successful. And now when I see people wearing that watch, they're like, I love this watch. So it was interesting because like the voices seem to be disproportionate relative to the people that actually want to buy the watch. Jean, you handled social media so well when you were launching Daniel Roth. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's, again, all my watch knowledge comes from social media, whether it be Instagram, YouTube, other kinds of platforms. I've spent probably a lot more time than I would like to know on these platforms to learn about watches in general, and so I respect a lot the community for that. Obviously, some comments you don't have to think about or don't have to look, but some comments are actually very founded and need to be addressed. So the reference you're doing is the Daniel Roth type font, right? So a lot of people were criticizing the fact that the way we written Daniel Roth was not the historical way of writing it, etc. So initially I started reading that, I found that preposterous, and then after a while I noticed like, okay, they have a point. I hadn't seen that. It's something that I wasn't paying attention to as much as making sure that the proportions of the design were right, the guilloche was perfect, the yellow dial, etc. And we changed it. I mean, it's not a very expensive change to make as a whole.
So you changed it from the font that you were using for the presentation to the font in the production. It's a different one.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the presentation font that we did initially, and we removed all the images online as well of that. Now the new font is actually respecting the traditional font that we used before. So these small details can trigger a lot of collectors as well, and I find that very funny, and it was great to be participating in that.
Well, I love that you made it like even more like the audience got involved in it, you know, because he actually put out a vote for everyone. It's like, which one do you prefer? And it caused even more sort of like positive momentum around the brand. So that was masterful.
And,
you know?
and unsurprisingly, overwhelmingly voted for the traditional font. So, you know, mistake on my part, but it's okay. It's all.
Would you say your knowledge comes from all the social media, YouTube, and would you say where your taste in watches and obviously now in making watches come from?
That's a very good question. It evolves a lot. You know, the watches I liked when I started getting into watches has completely changed. You know, it used to be vintage Rolex, vintage Rolex, vintage Rolex, and nothing else. And we were discussing that beforehand. Now it's anything but vintage Rolex. You know, and I think it's just about knowledge and understanding more into the details of watchmaking, meaning how difficult it is to do a black polished bridge, how difficult it is to do an interior angle, how difficult it is to have that sort of finishing on the case, which has this in all these different details. Now that I know a little bit more about the machining process and the manufacturing process, goes into it.
Well, I think you also said something which I found really relevant and really relevant to Alex and to Richard Mille in general, is that one of the reasons you stopped focusing on vintage so much was you're like, well, how sad is it that everything that's the greatest today can only be something from the past, right?
Completely agree.
And then that's what connected you with independent watchmaking, if I'm not mistaken, right?
100%. It was like the reason why I'm pushing for independent watchmaking through the price, through all these initiatives, is just because I feel like the future is a lot more interesting in watchmaking than the past. I always felt a bit cheated by the fact that, you know, the best watch in the world was a watch from the 1970s or the 1980s, and I felt a bit cheated because I wasn't alive then and I wasn't part of the industry then, etc. And so there still needs to be things to look forward to, right? And so I'm sure there are a lot of possibilities to do amazing watches in the future, and I want to trust in that. And obviously, when you see what Richard Mille has been doing for 20 years, more than 20 years now, all these amazing designs, all these amazing complications, and these incredible integrations of movement with case and materials and stuff, shows that there's tremendous potential in the future in watches as well. Because, and I'm guessing that's the way you want to think about the company in the future as well, right?
Of course, for us, it's from the beginning, and obviously even more in the future, because what we were discussing with Wei a little bit before the interview is obviously now we have more fun to fund ourselves and our craziness. So obviously the future will be even more complicated movement, even more crazy material. It's always pushing our own boundaries and never being so satisfied of ourselves, saying, okay, maybe we did succeed to do that one model that can make us live, and my grandchildren to live, and my nephew to live for generation and generation, is never being really satisfied and always look for the next one. That I think, don't take that as a cocky statement, and don't take that as we take a basic idea and we develop them. No, it's very concrete idea that will take time, that will make us suffer, that will make us bleed. Every time, every development will make us bleed, but that's why we are living for.
I take that as the opposite of cockiness. I think it takes amazing humility to be like, okay, we're not just going to rest on our laurels, and we have to constantly innovate and constantly push to create the future, and that's why your brand is so dynamic. I think one of the reasons why both of you are very much respected in this industry also is the level of commitment you've shown to it. You know, Jean, with your commitment to, in terms of what you've done with Vuitton, but also with Daniel Roth and now Gerald Genta as well. And also the creation of the Independent Watchmaking Prize too, which I know in October we'll have the announcement of the first one. but Alex, Paris, Los Angeles, Paris, and now in the middle of nowhere in Switzerland. Tell us about this geographical shift and why that was important to you.
It's a big personal commitment.
Exactly.
That shows the commitment. But you know, like I never hide that aspect of my life. That I always say that the brand is everything for me. Is truly everything for me, because this brand represents my family. It's my blood, and when I say my family, it's my very large family, not necessarily my blood family. It's all the people working for the brand. It's the client. It's people like you. It's all of that. It's my life. And when you have the chance to work for a brand like that with these crazy things that we are doing and work with those people. There's no better way to wake up in the morning. There's no better way to you know, like you open your eyes and you know exactly why you're waking up. You know exactly why you are in Les Breleux. You know exactly everything that you're doing is very straightforward, because I can see my family when I wake up, and I know I'm taking care of all of them.
And when did you have the switch? When did you start thinking, okay, now this is
that's a super good question. It was, I think, very late on in my life. My family, my blood family, my relatives, always been everything for me. I always gave my all to them. They can witness on that on trial. They will tell you, like, always give everything for them. It's, I mean, yeah, they are your people, so obviously you're ready to give them your whole life. And I mean, obviously there was like my parents divorced, and I didn't get to really know my dad. And when I finally met my dad, obviously it was through RM. And with all the little anger that you can have towards a divorced parent and everything, that I was pretty much resenting. When I met my dad and I met the brand and I met the people working for the brand, it's been more than 10 years now. And I realized why he did everything that he did. He really appeased me, because I understood everything. I understood all of the sacrifice that he did, and it was sacrifice. But also, he decided to surround himself with all of those people. And all of those people gave them all, their all, to that brand. And it is like, I know it sounds like a lot like a cult or something like that, but it is really people that are breathing and bleeding Richard Mille. Ask Julien at the factory, who's the head of the case development. He will tell you cut my arm, Alex, I would bleed white and black. Richard Mille, they are really like that, and they are very sane people, don't you worry. But they are and when you see that and you see what are those people, why and what those people are doing day after day after day, and it is all thanks to my dad. You don't want that to go to waste. You don't want that to, after my dad, the brand just disappear. You want to be the new guardian of the fort. You know, you want to be that person. And I know, and I lived the level of commitment that my dad gave to that brand, because I suffered the consequence. But today, I think it's only fair to maintain that, and the only way to do it with a brand like RM is to give your everything.
Jean, you know, what I also really appreciate about what you've done is you've made the first cultural initiative of anyone in your generation to really uplift watchmaking for the next generation. So tell us a little bit more about the Vuitton Prize for Independent Watchmaking. Tell us what to expect in October, and tell us why it was important for you to, you know, enrich your generation with a love for independent watchmaking.
You know, my first acquaintance with watchmaking, I thought that the biggest brands in the world used to work with watchmakers in their grenier, I mean, we call it in English, but in the attic.
Right.
That were all working by hand and doing the things like this. Even the biggest brands that I won't name, but that do hundreds of thousands of watches a year and things, I thought that was watchmaking. I had the opportunity to visit a few of the manufacturers of the group and also outside of the group over the years, and then noticed that watchmaking was a lot more like the automobile industry than it was what I thought initially it was, right? And then came the fashion for independent watchmaking, which I didn't know of before, and discovered with everybody, you know, in 2017 or 18. And that's where my interest really peaked and thinking, okay, there are people that are still working the traditional way, that are still doing things by hand, still doing things with conventional machines. And that, for me, was like kind of an enlightening moment, thinking, okay, this industry, this part of the industry still exists, and I want to make sure that the trend that happens in independent watchmaking at the moment doesn't stop. I've seen in my short time in industry interest for vintage watches wane, and now vintage watches are not as hot as they were 3-4 years ago with the Paul Newman and all these things that happened. And I don't want that to happen with independent watchmaking, because big brands like the ones that we know work in vintage will still work today, but small independents, if the trend goes down, most of them will go bust. And so I don't want that to happen. I want the people that work the proper way, that work very artisanally, that uplift the industry as a whole, I want to make sure that we sustain them as much as possible. So that's the origin for the initiative, to think, okay, how can we over time make sure that this does not become a trend, but become a really stable part and cornerstone of the industry, which every collector at some point will look at, or every person interested in the industry will look at some point and think, okay, you've got the big brands and then the independents. And that's really the way I wanted to build it, and make sure that we have the prize happening once every 2 years to ensure that there's still momentum going and still new people that are interested to get into that space. So
I know you guys prepare questions beforehand, but I just want to articulate a question you had for Jean and Jean had for you, because I think we've pretty much identified the answers, but I think Jean's question was, which is the question everyone wants to know, is what's the secret sauce at Richard Mille that allows you to have the highest average price point in the industry and so on like that. I kind of get an inkling it's basically the human beings, but is there a secret sauce?
So 20 years ago, my dad wrote the recipe, and it's now in the safe of Richard. Nobody can see. No, there's no secret recipe. I know there's probably a lot of people asking themselves the same question. There's no secret recipe. Everything is pretty clear, and it's transparent, and it's out there. If you look to every interview my dad ever gave, every article that you wrote, every video you can find on YouTube, everything is very clear. The recipe is here. It's not that difficult. What it takes, it's very committed people, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of courage, and time, and you have it all. Like the rest of the recipe, everybody knows it. It's just do a watch. If you have an idea and you have a very clear idea, which we have every single time for every single watch, you go through and you never stop to anything. And obviously, why we are getting, I do feel in terms of development, better and better, is because for 20 years, we still have the same people working for the brand. We still have the same backbone of the brand is still here, and those people are getting obviously better and better every day.
So I understand the secret sauce now. Don't let yourself go in temptation.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
yes,
exactly.
Actually, it's funny because of the financial success of the brand, people feel that it was financially motivated. But it's the opposite, right?
Like it's the opposite. My dad could have like such a successful life. I mean, you should ask, probably better, but you should ask people that were there around that time. I know for a fact that my dad was looked after, like people wanted him to take the helm of this watch, of this brand, or this brand, or this brand. And no, it's just like, it cannot be, if money is the only thing you're running after, or even a thing that you're running after, you're wrong, especially in our industry. Like, you cannot know. But once you have the conviction, you know exactly what you are doing, and you have your clear view, that's where success will follow, and after success, everything will follow.
It's kind of like you were saying, it's the fearlessness to never compromise, right? Don't give in to that temptation.
Exactly.
And I know that was important for you in that watch as well.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay, so his question for you, which I loved, was okay. So I think you look around the industry and you try to identify those guys that really could do something. So your dad, obviously, François-Paul Journe, Max Buser, and then you look at the next generation and you're like, who could create his own brand, right? And I think a lot of us are like, actually, could be you, right?
My own brand.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So rather than like rebuilding Daniel Roth, or he's genuinely surprised, or rebuilding
very
Gerald
good
Genta, or doing the tambour, it's like why not just do Jean Arnault?
Oh my God. Please
No,
no.
Jean Arnault or something else.
Yeah, but or
there's
do-
really for me that there's this real question that how much you love watchmaking. You're building your own knowledge still. I don't say that by 25 you need to have created your own brand. You could be 50 like my dad. But is it something that you think about? Do you see yourself as having enough things to say that it could be contained in a watch brand that will not necessarily wear your name, but that will be yours? Or do you see yourself in the future just not just because it's a lot, but doing what you're doing with the watches? Do you see yourself outside the watch world maybe?
But watches is my passion for sure. Doing my own watch brand, that's certainly not on the cards. Not going to happen in the next couple of years. Again, probably at 50, who knows? I might change my mind. But yeah, before all, watches is my passion. Something I want to work on in the foreseeable future. Not an industry I want to leave anytime soon. I think there's a lot to give in watchmaking a whole. There's a lot of amazing people I've met so far, and it's only been 2 years. And the first watch industry person I met was actually way 2017.
Sorry about that.
I apologize too.
You should have run away at this point.
Yeah,
2017. I should have, because now I'm stuck in it and I'm never going to go away. And so, no, exactly. You meet so many amazing people. Everybody's committed. You don't go in the watch industry by mistake. It's not somewhere you go as a springboard to some other industry or some other thing. And what I love about it is that 99% of the people that work in the industry are 100% passionate and are really into what they're doing. You've got the odd people here and there, but most of the people you meet are really passionate about it and are dedicated to their craft. And so that's what I love before all. Would I work in another industry? Who knows? But it's not something I'm looking at. And would I launch my watch brand? You just planted the seed. Who knows?
I want 50%.
That's not a bad partner, actually. To be fair.
If I can get the recipe and I'll take it.
I guess I want to finish this by just asking you each one question. What's the most important thing you learned from your dad, Alex?
I mean, actually, that's an easy one. It comes from a very personal story, but it's still something that I carry every day. I was, I don't know, probably around 10 or something like that. I had my very first, I used to say that, heartache, like the first time my heart was broken. And at that time, I didn't have like a many contact with my dad, but still from time to time, he would be calling. And that day, I don't know if you remember that, but that day I was like, obviously with all the teenage spleen, I was at the end of my life. Nobody could make me feel better. And that day my dad called and I picked up the phone. And really keep in mind, it was not like ordinary. So my dad called and I start talking to him and I tell him like nobody understands me, like all of that. And my dad, his answer was, my son, obviously. I can promise you, you will survive, and there will be many other stories like that in your life. But one thing that I love the most about life is problems, because that's where I can find solution, and I know again why I'm waking up every morning. And still to this day, it takes time. Like at that moment, I can promise you, I was like, just like you don't understand. And but it stayed engraved in my mind that all time, and now 25 years later, but obviously a little bit before that, I think probably when I was 30 or 29, that conversation came out, and I realized everything that he was saying. And from that day, I promised myself that I would always be happier than the day before, and that I would take all the pleasure in the world in finding solution to all the problems. And still today, I think there's been a real switch in my personality also from my 20s to my 30s, and it's probably due to that exact moment when that conversation came out. And from now on, my mindset is totally different, and it's always like I will find solution. I will always find a solution. In our position, in our situation,
Richard Mille, but also in our life, the family life and everything, there's always a solution. You always find a solution.
That's great. Jean?
Well, obviously, like personally and everything like that, hard work, humility, all of this. But if I have one thing to say in business, most generally, and specifically in our side of the business, he always says every single day, product comes first and the results will follow. And so as long as you focus on making sure that the product is the best thing possible, then the numbers will follow, the success will follow, however long it might take. If you're convinced and the people around you and the team that worked on it is convinced that the product is good, everything else will be okay.
Which is actually the same philosophy that your dad has,
exactly.
Which would make you guys incredible business partners for Jean's brand in the future. Think about it.
We can mix the names together. And do something.
Actually, it would be cool.
Arnault Mille, Mille Arnault.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Merci.
Jean. Cheers.
Monsieur.
That's good.